Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back, Yoko and Ron and Frederica, Las Vegas, and your extended stay up north as well. I hope you had a wonderful time, and maybe you can share with some people after, because I'm sure they'd be happy to share some of their experiences. We've been here just looking at how we're going forward as a local community. We had a great community meeting a few weeks ago, which set in motion some different ideas and thoughts and a desire to come together as a community and see what we're really striving to build. And so today, I wanted to talk about the keys to the kingdom. The keys to the kingdom have been passed on, and each one of us is holding the keys. You might not know that. You might be wondering, how come we're not in the kingdom of heaven yet? Who's going to open the doorway for me? But the reality is that we have been given the keys to create this kingdom of heaven, to create it within our own families, in our communities. And here we have these beautiful kids running around today to remind us of the kingdom we're building and why we're doing it for these beautiful children. But also for all of our sake, right? We all want to live in this kind of kingdom, not just in glory evermore when we go to heaven, but here on earth we want to build this kind of kingdom. So, I was thinking about it, and Lena has been going to the chiropractor, and I asked her, so she said, oh, are you getting better? And she said, oh yeah, each adjustment. And I said, well, you're doing all the exercises or whatever that she's asking you to do. And actually, I found out she's not being asked to do exercises. And I thought, oh. So my understanding when I talked to other chiropractors was they have this gripe that people will come in and say, hey, you keep adjusting me, but no change is really happening. And they always ask, they said, are you doing the stretches? Are you doing the things that I've been teaching you to do? And they say, oh no, I thought you were going to fix all my problems. But actually their job is to train us, to teach us in order to take care of our own body better, right? Or just like I used to be a caregiver for Lena's parents, and one of my jobs was to learn from the physical therapist and occupational therapist all the different things that I had to do with my mother and father-in-law throughout the week. We had to practice them. They would teach us, but they weren't there forever. And it was always a hard thing because my father-in-law loved having his physical therapist or his speech therapist, but they only lasted so long. And then they'd say, well, your time's up. We can come back in 6 months and revisit this and see how you're progressing. But the point was we were supposed to learn the tricks and how to work on it. And I always remember there was one that we worked on a lot because my father-in-law had Parkinson's, and it makes your speech kind of less audible. It makes your steps really small even when you think you're walking normal. So everything was about big. So they'd say, Ryder, you have to talk big, and whatever you want to say something, you shout it out, and it would still only come out as a mumble, right? But the more you practice loud, the more we could actually understand him. And the more he would practice thinking he's taking a big step, at least he could lift his foot off the ground. But the training, the practice had to be followed up. The therapist was only there to encourage, to give the instruction initially, to give us an idea of how to live a healthy life, but it was up to us to make these practices become a reality, to make his health situation improve. And that's kind of how I feel a lot when I think about building this kingdom of heaven. A lot of times people are waiting for a miracle. I was talking with a guy the other day that was in our play place, and we started talking about spirituality and him starting his journey with God, and him asking a lot of questions about us. And he said, you know what? I just know that he is coming back. Maybe not in my lifetime, but definitely in my kid's lifetime. And I have to be ready for that. It's about to come. I know it. I know it. And so I was inviting him to come over and fellowship with us. And he has our information. We had a great time, and we exchanged numbers. But I thought about how many people are waiting, anticipating that the clouds are going to part, Jesus is going to come down, and their life is going to change, right? Suddenly their husband's going to treat them like he's supposed to. Suddenly their boss is going to pay them more money. Suddenly their house is going to be fixed. Suddenly their laziness is going to disappear and they're going to be active. Suddenly Jesus will come and our life will be fixed. It will be repaired. And all of our hope is in Jesus. Right? All of our desire is in Jesus. And even for us, that transfers over. And sometimes we go, all of our hope, right, is in true parents. And this is where I'm going to step on some ground. I told Lena this last night. I said, can I say this? And I think she gave me the go-ahead. True parents will not bring about the kingdom of heaven by themselves. Right? The Messiah does not make the kingdom of heaven. It cannot happen. It doesn't matter how many speeches are given, how many blessings are given. They cannot change this world. The Messiah that we have all been waiting for is not going to magically come and change the world for us. It doesn't matter how many conditions are laid. The only way the kingdom of heaven comes is when each individual recognizes their identity as God's child. And when each individual grows in that relationship and sees their spouse and sees their neighbor and sees their children as God's divine body, as God's divine presence, and starts treating them like that. The kingdom of heaven only comes about when all people start recognizing their duty in creating the kingdom of heaven. There is no magic verse in the Bible. There's no magic verse in the Chun Sung Kyung that when it's read will change this world. And I was a little nervous saying that at first, but I think you understand my heart. We have to embody this. It is our time. True Mother recently was speaking with members and said, now is no longer the time for you to wait and be told what to do. Go out and do what you know you should do. It's our time to start realizing that God's message, God's love, God's insight lives within each one of us. True parents' role was to open the door and open our mind to the possibility, the reality of who we are and what kind of power lies within us. To open up the three blessings and say, this is the course for each human being. You are now engrafted on this tree. Now you have to live your own relationship with God. Make that your own. It's not your parents. It's not your pastors. It's not true parents. It's your relationship with God. And they cannot make that relationship happen for you, right? They cannot create that relationship for you. They can encourage you. They can inspire you. They can give you steps to take. This is the stuff you should be doing. But we need to take that ownership in our own life. This is my spiritual life. This is my existence, my journey, and I need to choose how I'm going to live it. Your marriage, right, only becomes true when you decide you're going to absolutely commit yourself to your marriage. That you're going to commit yourself to the happiness of your spouse, not that they're committed to yours, not that they have to do everything to make you happy, but you're going to live and invest everything to make that relationship work. When two couples come together like that, right, that was the original ideal. Two people come with this heart to give absolutely, and then they'd fill in all the other boxes for the other person. They would work together. Now, we don't come in this world. We don't live in that kind of world. We come from broken families sometimes. We come from mistakes. We've learned false ways to relate with others, and we have to re-educate ourselves. But when we start to live more and more in accordance with God, when we fulfill that first blessing and choose that I'm going to make my marriage work, then it starts to work, right? When we choose to live this love for other people, then this love starts becoming a reality. The kingdom of heaven is not here for this group of people. It's not God's chosen people. They get to live in the kingdom of heaven, and everybody else, well, they had their chance. They didn't listen. Now, there's no kingdom of heaven until all people walk into the kingdom of heaven. And so it's up to us. True parents open the door, but it's up to us. So I was looking the other day at different courses, and I always think about, we're kind of in this funny position because for so long our movement was the pioneers walking through the wilderness, figuring out the course, restoring things so that we could live in an ideal world. But then there was this shift to settlement age, and we kind of were confused, and we tried to do some things different, but then we go back to our habits, right? Habits are very comforting. Our regular lifestyle. I'm always telling myself I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and exercise, but when I wake up in the morning, I take care of my kids, and then I do this and that, and I don't exercise, to be honest. Except for when we go to the YMCA, where we force ourselves. But, the habit of our daily life often controls where we go instead of us controlling our life. We're controlled by the comforts of routine that we built in. And as a movement, we were built into this mindset of just following the Messiah. And that was important to restore, to open the doorway to all people. But then they started opening the blessing to other people. Some of us said, hey, we worked really hard for our blessing. I don't know if that should go to that person. We started looking at it and saying, where is this going? I thought this was for us. Even we had the mindset, we're building this kingdom for everybody. It was hard to change from this, our family to God's family. It's a difficult transition. We're still figuring that out. And the bigger change is coming into settlement. Figuring out, how do we actually live this in our day-to-day life? I always envy monks, right? Because their spirituality, right, is all they have to think about. I think I would make a great monk. I love to sit alone and quiet and read a book and pray and think. I love doing that. What's hard is trying to do that with my family, with my kids running around and yelling. And I say, hey, I want to share this verse with you. I want to talk to you about God. And then my son starts spewing off some weird stuff. Actually, they've been sharing some really beautiful stuff recently about their relationship with God. And these questions, my children baffle me a lot of times. Oh, how do I answer that one? But I think oftentimes, this spiritual life is so easy when we can just cut ourselves off from family responsibilities, from work responsibilities. I remember that monk that came in here back in Irvington, right? And he was talking about all these high ideals of meditation and stuff, and I couldn't help but think, he's not married. Well, that is easy for him, right? I'm sure he works really hard, and I'm sure it is a lot of investment, and there is a lot of sacrifice, but to create a spiritual life and settle that into your family, that's a challenge. No wonder Christianity for so long was focused on the priest system, right? It was about individual salvation, not family salvation, because that gets messy. Before that, the Jewish people, they were stuck on this idea that it's our salvation, not the Canaanites or anybody else. This is for us. Like, the Messiah is coming for us. Because it gets difficult, the more you broaden that out. It's easy for an individual to be holy and pious. But when you have to settle down and make that into your day-to-day life, when you're working, when you're dealing with customers, when you're dealing with complaints, when you're dealing with bills, to have that same loving heart that you idealize when you pray. Right? When you're in a quiet place and you're praying and you think about all these wonderful things you're going to say to other people and how you're going to treat them, and then you see them and everything flashes back and you don't see God anymore. You see all the crap they've done to you, all the things they've said to you, and you can't have that loving heart anymore. It's challenging. That's that settlement error. And so when I look at that, I look at, the Israelites, and so they were on their path, their journey, right? They're told, hey, you're marching to the blessed spring of life. You're going to Canaan. This is going to be great. It's the land of milk and honey. Everything's going to be wonderful. And they're marching there, and they're following Moses, and Moses keeps telling them, we're almost there. I don't know how many times he must have had to say that. It's like you're driving in a car, with your kids, and are we there yet? And Moses is like, yeah, we're just follow along. Come on, guys. You see, a lot of them, I think we're expecting Moses is going to be our Messiah. Moses is going to make it all work out. So Moses is walking and teaching them, and he's connecting to God, and they're thinking, this guy is really holy. God obviously lives and breathes and works through this guy, so we just need to be around him. It doesn't matter so much what we do. And so every time a difficulty comes, they all gripe and complain. Right? They say, oh, we're hungry. And then God puts manna, and then they go, I don't really like this stuff. Can you think of something else, God? You know, there's this struggle that they're having of creating their own happiness and they're creating their own piece of heaven. And they're waiting on God to do it all. And, I mean, for some, you know, in some ways they could expect it. I mean, God parted the river for them, God, you know, or the seas, and manna. So they're expecting God to keep taking care of everything. But God was the parent of Israel, and they were his children, and God was hoping that when they come to this settlement era, when they come to Canaan, that they would settle it. And they would own their own life. And they'd say, hey, this is a beautiful place, now let's make it more beautiful. Let's plant some great gardens, let's you know, bring in the cattle and the sheep. We're going to make sure this is, you know, well stocked, and we're going to take care of this land that God gave to us. But instead, the whole time, they kept saying, you know, this is a nice idea, Moses, but, you know, back in Egypt, we never had to worry about our food. Sure, we were slaves. Sure, we didn't get to make our own choices of where to live, and sometimes they you know, whipped us and did things, but at least we never had to worry about our food. There was plenty of food, and now we're marching along, following you. We've got no house. We're making tents every night to live in. Now they're looking at it like, what's going on? Can we just go back? And that amazed me, you know, reading these words of them asking, can we go back to Egypt? But I think that's what happens when we get closer to settlement, right? We all have this idea that we're going to be owners of this kingdom of heaven, that we're going to own this dream that our true parents inspired us with. But as we get closer, we say, can we just go back? It's a lot easier, no responsibilities. You know, we just follow and support. But that's not what they're asking us to do, right? Moses opened the doorway, but the children never walked in and never accepted it and never settled. And so they spent 400 more years trying to figure it out until they got a king. And then still it was, you know, they kept prolonging it because they couldn't understand that it wasn't about the king that they were waiting for. It wasn't then about David's, you know, lineage and his Messiah that was going to come about. They couldn't figure out it was about them, their own lives, right? And Jesus came and everybody kept following him around. And you know, towards the end of his life, he's talking to his disciples and encouraging them and telling them they're going to do great things. But they did not want him to leave because they looked at themselves as just simple people, not God's divine sons and daughters. They saw Jesus and said, he's God's son. I see that. That's clear. And we need you, Jesus. If we don't have you, this all falls apart. And Jesus had to keep coming to them and say, hey, no. You have already been equipped with the Spirit. You have my message. You have my words. And so finally he comes to Peter, right? And to Peter he says, and I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And the gates of hell, the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. And whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Right? So he gave the keys. He said, I'm not the owner of this anymore, right? I walked through the door. I've been there. I know the Father. Now here's the keys. Now spread this out. Multiply it. Go make copies at Home Depot or something. Give out copies to everybody. Let them have ownership. So that they can open the kingdom of heaven because it's in your midst, right? But we need to realize where God resides, right? God isn't up there in heaven waiting, to just make everything happen. He's saying, you're here on earth. whatever you bind on earth, whatever you create here, that's what heaven's going to be like. I don't know about you, but I don't want to see what we're living in today when I go to heaven, right? Whatever we loose on earth, whatever we open up here, is open in heaven. That's what we want to see. But our hope needs to come back into our own lives. And I think this is the way we honor our parents, is by becoming owners of our life. We decide that their dream is our dream. That their lifestyle is our lifestyle. That living for the sake of others, loving unconditionally, expecting the best and raising up people, even those that look like they're straight out of hell. Loving them, encouraging them, lifting them up. This is the way that they're asking us to live. And so we need to look in our own community, our own neighborhood, our own family. Think, what is it that I can do to open the kingdom of heaven in this relationship? How do I make this a reality? It's not going to be what happens in Chicago or in Las Vegas or in Korea, right? That's a spark. That's an encouragement. That's, hey, this is what's possible. But then we've got to follow that up with practice in our daily life. It's like true parents are that physical therapist saying, hey, if you do this, this, and this exercise, you're going to get better. But if you just keep coming back week after week hoping that I'm going to give you the key, and you're not going to have to exercise, you're not going to have to change your diet, you're not going to have to change your way of life, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. I remember being in Korea, and right after our blessing, and we were, it was 7/7/07. So Reiner was really big on dates, so this was a big day. And he got us to go up to the palace after it had been opened up. But he had an agreement to go up there, but then, anyways, it got miscommunicated. But finally we got up there, and so it's all Koreans, other than us in the back row. Yeah. And it was really cool. Actually, he was talking about all sorts of neat things. Talking about being able to fight off bears in Yakuza. I thought that was kind of fun. But then he got to one point, and there was a deep message behind that, I'm sure. I didn't get all the translations. But then he got to a point, and the leaders kept asking him for something new. And he said, y'all, he didn't say y'all. I don't think so. He said, you keep coming back to me. You keep coming back and saying, what's new? What's next? What else do you have for us? He said, why would I give you something new when you haven't even practiced the basic things I've already taught you? Right? We've got the basics, right? We've got the 3 great blessings. We have the 4-position foundation. We have the ODU. We've got all these different principles of how to repair relationships, how we should treat one another. We understand there's a foundation of faith and a foundation of substance. That's up to us, right? We have these principles. When we start applying them, then our kingdom of heaven starts to emerge in our own selves, in our own families, and we can start modeling it for other people. This is what true parents have been waiting for. This is what Jesus was waiting for. I believe Jesus was waiting for one of those guys with Peter to say, all right, yeah, you go, I've got this, right? I'm going to build this kingdom for you. How many times do you think true parents were waiting for someone to say, okay, we've got this. We're going to start this home church thing in our own family. We're going to start living this. We're going to start sharing it with our neighbors. I admit I've been, hesitant and conflicted and let the fears get the best of me many times, right? How do I share? How do I talk to other people? What if they reject me? What if they don't like what I say? But at the same time, I look at these words and I say, this is absolutely true. The principles that I stake my marriage on, my family on, they're absolutely true, and I know it. The only time I don't believe it is when I'm not living it. You know? When I was 18 years old, I remember I was thinking, man, this church is kind of weird. And I grew up in, but there's something to it because I like my parents' marriage. And so I said, I'm going to go down, I'm going to spend a year, and I'm going to try all the things I've been told out. Right? I'm going to do cold showers every day. I'm going to do 100K at 5 a.m. I'm going to do fasting. I was going to do all these different things. I remember my first 3-day fast. I was so proud of myself. I finished the 3-day fast, and then my friends came home with a big box of buffalo wings. They had all sorts of buffalo wings, and they said, oh, you got to try this suicide one. So if you can imagine, suicide was very hot, and I tried that after 3 days of not eating anything. I had a lot to learn about these things. Didn't work out well. But, the point was I went down there and I was challenging God. I mean, I was just up there challenging. I was like, if you are real, prove it to me. I'm going to do everything that my parents told me I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do everything they told me I should do in workshop. I'm going to pray 21 minutes every day. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing too. And I put them all together. It wasn't just like, I'm doing a cold shower this week. I was doing like all 7, 8 conditions at once, all the time. And it was completely like this challenge. It wasn't because I found it to be fruitful. It was because I was challenging it. And I was like, I want to have the option to walk away from this, but I want to know that it's fake. So I'm going to challenge it all. And honestly, for months, nothing happened. But then, in the spring, so this must have been like 7 months in, I've been doing all these things, and I just had this confrontation with God, this experience with God that was undeniable. And it lasted for 12 hours straight of just me in communion with God, me talking with God, sharing my heart with God, and it was like the answers were just coming right as I was speaking the question. Boom, the answer came, and I was like, that did not come from me. And after days like this and a few weeks of just pouring out my heart and getting these answers, I thought, wow, there really is something to this. And God was real in that moment, and I saw the kingdom of heaven could unfold any day now. But I'll be honest, life got tricky, life got complicated. I got more busy. High school was an easy time to just do whatever I wanted, but then marriage started, and college, and work, and helping with the church, and then having kids, and all the busyness. I know that the kingdom of heaven is possible. I know that that experience is possible. But we need to open our hearts to it by practicing daily principles that God asked us to do. And our true parents say, they don't tell us to do these things just to do them. Not just as conditions, but they know that if we do 100K daily, we're going to connect our relationship with God. Isn't it amazing that Reverend Moon, he wrote all these words, right? He gave all these speeches, and he sat there reading the same 100K, right? He's reading his own words over and over again. I remember just being blown away when I was in Europe and I'm standing outside doing security of his hotel room and hearing at 3 a.m. he's up and he's reading 100K. And then he's about to do at 5 a.m. with all of us. And then he's going to go travel to the next country and give a speech. And I thought, wow. He lived it, he breathed it, and it became part of his life. But he didn't do that just to be like the miracle man, like I'm going to fix every problem. He did it to give us an example of how we can live our life, how we can be transforming the people around us. So, anyways, it's our time, brothers and sisters, right? It's our time, and that's what I hear with this Peace Starts With Me movement going on right now, the blessing movement going on right now. The responsibility has been given to the children. And there's an expectation that we become adult children. I'm going to live these out in my own life. I'm going to bring joy to my parents by living out these ideals, by making them my own, by sharing it with others. I'm going to start transforming lives. I look at people that come in to the play place, because that's where I meet most people that I don't know already. I think, man, What if we can just love into this person? What if we can just invest into this person? And not just love them, but educate them. Help them realize what's going on in their marriages. I was sitting at the dance studio one time, and I started talking to this lady that was really confused about how to talk to her son about his sexuality and love and relationships. And I just started sharing things that I kind of grew up with, like things that I don't even think are that big. And she said, "Oh, I need a pen and paper. I need to write this down." How many things, how many nuggets of truth are inside of us, right? That can completely transform someone's life. If we would just share it. If we would just express it. So, Dr. Moon, Mama Moon, peace, the mother of peace. She has all these new names now. True Mother said, America is in the position to create the change. The time has come to welcome God as the true owner. This is a key for earth to be healed. To let God become the owner of our own lives. That's where it starts. It's not going to start when we change the minister down the road's heart. It's going to start first when we let God become the owner of our own hearts, our own lives. And then become the owner of our families. And then become the owner of this community here. And then we can let God become the owner of more and more things, right? We have to do that. And it's not in there, but True Mother also said the time has come to welcome God as a true owner in our families. We need to lead a movement where we welcome God into our daily lives. This is the key for humanity, for this earth to be healed. And will you join this effort? Now is the time to let God be in our families, in our daily lives. Our daily lives, every day. It's not a Sunday service kind of thing. It's not a on-Shia, 8 days a week kind of thing. It's not something that happens where we move in us. Feel this should be an everyday thing that we make God part of our everyday life. And when we do that, people see that in our lives. And people that have been needing that light, have been needing that love, been needing that truth, will know who to come to. And then we need to open our mouths, right? Share it. I was thinking about this whole witnessing thing, sharing our stories. You know, we think, oh, if I witness, I have to go out and tell them all these theological things. You know, most people, that's not what you need to do. Go in and share your story. What God has done in your own life. What God is doing in your family. What God has done in your children. Just share your story. It's as simple as that. Because God wrote that story to be shared. That's your testimony. When we say testimony or testify, it has to be something you saw and felt and did, right? You have to be a witness to it, right? You're not witnessing just to a doctrine, but you're witnessing to a lifestyle and a heart and a relationship. So, just as Moses came to open the door to that new promised land, the kingdom was in their midst, but they had to walk through it. Jesus came on this foundation. He opened the doors. He even gave the keys away. But after 2,000 years, we still don't see that kingdom of heaven. We've been missing the point. True parents came. I think a lot of us were waiting. Oh, they're just going to solve all our problems. And if I just follow, if I just pray, if I just support them, then things will happen. And that was a part of it. But the other part, the reality is, all people have to live this way. All people need to inherit God's heart. But it starts with each one of us. And so I just wanted to finish by encouraging, I'm asking us all to do 40 days of prayer together. I didn't write it. The email, I've been working on this July 14th. I'll tell you about that later in our announcements. But I got really busy with the district level stuff this week. But I shared a little bit in our email yesterday. I'm asking that we come together as a community to pray together. You can do it in your own home, because this should be something in your daily life, something happening in your home, to pray for unity as a community. That we have one heart. We all have the same ideal, the same dream. We have different ways of getting there, maybe. We have different ideas of how to make that happen. But we have the same heart towards God and true parents who see in this kingdom of heaven. So we want to pray for that ideal. And then we can have unity. that we can grow as individuals and as families in our relationship with God. And over this next 40 days, we try and make this relationship with God something that's growing within us, not just in our heads, but inside of our hearts. And finally, that we can expand God's family, right? So we can expand God's family. We start inviting people here. And it's not for this church's sake, right? It's for the sake of changing lives, saving marriages. I mean, we're talking about the other day. How amazing is it? Our goal, our mission is to save marriages, to save children from that divorce, to save families from breakdown, save children from abuse. And we're teaching them the true values of love, the true ideal of marriage. If fathers were true fathers in their family, if mothers were true mothers, children would know what to expect in life. We are teaching that. So if we expand this blessing, if we share it with more people, invite people, not everybody's going to agree. Not everybody's going to come in here and say, oh yeah, I agree absolutely, but at least give them a chance. Welcome them here. Invite them in our doors. Invite them in our community. And let God do what God needs to do. Because there are people that are prepared, that are waiting for God to talk to them. And we're the key. We have the key. So what I'm asking everyone to do is prayer for 40 days. This gives you a good new habit, to break those old habits and give you a new habit. Just pray for these 3 points. And I don't care if you start out with 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 21 minutes. Start where you start. Push yourself as much as you can push yourself. But pray for community unity. Pray that we can all grow as individuals in our relationship with God and His families. And pray that we can have the heart to reach other people. And then do Hunduke. I encourage you, whether that's, again, 3 minutes or 40 minutes. As I used to say as a youth pastor, Nunduke is better than Nonduke. No, I don't know what I used to say. That was a long time ago. Do it when you can do it. If you can't do 5 a.m., do it at noon, do it at 7. My family always did at 7. We'd do it after dinner, because that's when we were all together. Just do some time to saturate God's Word into your life. Whatever it is, just read it, talk about it, share about it, make that a practice in your life. And do it as a family. Actually, Hunduke is about a gathering to study and learn, right? It's not an individual condition, actually. It's supposed to be done together. So even if you have to call up someone, I'm going to Skype in my friends and we're going to do it together. It should be done together. Actually, I even thought it's cool, Kyohei, the word for church. Father was saying it means gather to learn. So I thought, hey, gather family church, we're on the right track. And he said that's why he liked it. He didn't like the word church, but he said, but I like this idea of gathering to learn. And then service, live for the sake of others. Make it a point. This is part of your condition. Make it a point to find some way to help someone. Live for the sake of others. That can be volunteering here at church, but that can be helping someone open the door when they've got too many groceries in their hand. That can be helping someone at the supermarket. It could be anything, right? But try and do one thing for someone else every day. It's a condition that our community can grow off of. And finally, I want to encourage you to share. Share your testimony. Share your story. Someone wants to hear that encouragement. Someone needs to hear that encouragement, that God was awoken inside of you, that God did something inside of you. Someone is waiting to hear that story. And so as a condition, it's not just enough to pray and Hunduke on your own, but we need to horizontally share this. We need to express God's love to this world. Share your story. You don't know what kind of story it might be that changes someone's life. It could be about eating buffalo wings after a 3-day fast. They might go, oh my goodness. It could be anything that changes someone's life. You don't know. But if you don't share it, you won't change anyone's life. And true parents are asking us to do that. True mother will not make the kingdom of heaven by herself. as much as she tries and she puts herself out there every day to do it, if she stands alone, nothing is going to be accomplished. So as a community, I ask that we come together to make a difference in this world, to share environmentalism, to share a care for this world, a care for brothers and sisters, a care for the lost and the lonely and the destitute, a care for all people. Share this love and make a difference. So brothers and sisters, I give you the key. Go out and make it happen. And please join me if you can for the next 40 days to try and pray for our community and pray for God's blessing. Let's pray. Dear God, our Heavenly Parent, God, you created each one of us the way we are. God, you gave us an inspiration when we started our life, an inspiration to live a good life, to be loved and love others, to share kindness. God, you started us off with such an attitude, such a heart, God, and I pray that as we get older, God, that we do not give up hope on this dream, that we don't become cynical, that we don't become angry and depressed, but we open our hearts to the possibility that, God, you still are alive. God, that you still are acting out in this world. God, that your reality is not something from the past. It's not something from a book from a long time ago. But God, you are here in our midst, God. And as we start living out as if we believe in these words, as we start living as if we believe in our true parents, as if we believe in what they said about us and our blessing, God, when they gave us a blessing, they said, you are going to build this kingdom of heaven in your family. God, let us believe that and live that out in our daily life. Give us courage. Forgive us for the time that we've been lapsed. Let us forgive ourselves, because I know you do forgive us. God, let us let go of the past and just say, today is a new day. God, your Spirit lives in me. I recognize you inside of me. And I'm going to start living out as if this world needs me, needs what I have to offer. So God, please be with my brothers and sisters here. Please be with our family here, that it can be strengthened and encouraged, that it can live up to its ideal, and that we can expand your family here on earth. God, we thank you so much for being with us here this morning. We want to offer this Sunday to you. I pray this in all of our names as blessed central family.